Hello and welcome back to W Rated, the podcast where we willingly watch the world's worst rated movies. In today's episode, we are delving into another film on IMDb's bottom 100 list, welcoming a new special guest. For any new listeners, my name's Daisy, and as always, I'm joined by podcast co-creator, editor and host Claire. Claire, how are you doing?
I'm all good. Nothing exciting, nothing to report. Definitely not having microphone problems. No, nothing of the sort.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Well, we've had the pleasure of recording 2 podcasts in a row this week, so that might be why you haven't got any updates for me.
True, very true.
Okay, cool. So today we have joining us film, TV and game critic and writer, Sharia Chavla. Welcome to the pod.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, so pleased. Thank you for joining us. So Sharia, we basically have a tradition on the podcast where whatever film we've decided to do with the guest, we like them to introduce it for us and maybe tell us a little bit about if you've got a relationship with the film. And then myself and Claire can go ahead and talk about what our relationship with the film is. So please take it away and tell us what we'll be talking about today.
So today we're going to be talking about a truly special movie. It's called Alone in the Dark. It's based on the Atari video game of the same name, pretty famous one, very popular one at the time. And this one was directed and not written, just directed by Uwe Boll, who is another very prolific director who I'm sure this is not the last time you're going to talk about on this show.
Not the first either.
Oh, the first. There you go. And this one stars Kristen Slater and Tara Reid, Stephen Dorff, and yeah, they have to combat something supernatural that's been awakened after thousands of years. That's the brief gist of the movie. That's actually the gist of the movie. And my relationship with it is actually in the form of reviews. Like when I started talking about movies more in a public forum, one thing that came up considerably was, people talking about movies that were up and down, like, nostalgic trips and stuff like that. And Alone in the Dark was one of the movies that came up because Uwe Boll infamously, his relationship with critics isn't great. And it became this sort of rite of passage where it was like, I feel like if you're talking about films in general, you have to talk about an Uwe Boll film at some point just because you need to get a death threat or something. Or something.
Like a badge of honor.
Exactly, And so it sort of became a thing where it was like, I watched a lot of his movies. I watched this one. I watched House of the Dead. I watched Blood Rain. I watched In the Name of the King, I guess it's called. And a couple of other ones. They were all really pleasant viewings, of course, and so to talk about one of them today and to be here this is the highlight of my year, obviously. So, I
That's
can't
it.
wait for this.
Clip it and ship it. We need that as a pull quote for our podcast. Yes, it's definitely I don't want to say a highlight, but it's something that's going to be like indistinguishable from our podcast is parodies and Uwe Boll. I think we might have to do a bit of a ranking in terms of the themes and trends and what's coming up the most, like remakes, all sorts of stuff like this, just to see what makes up the bottom 100. Because I don't know if we ended up getting a total count of his films on here, but we have already done one, Blood Rain. I don't believe we've released that yet at the time of recording, or maybe we have. No, we have.
That's
we have.
been and gone.
Been and gone. And then we've definitely got
last year.
quite a few. Yeah, sorry, my brain is always smush when it comes to time. That whole theory that they have time as a circle, that's how it operates in my mind.
What is
but we've
time, really? Is time a thing?
Exactly.
Jeremy
Jeremy Bearimy, indeed. But yes, we've got definitely a few more titles to come from Uwe Boll. Claire, did you know much about this film, or had you seen it before the pod?
Nope, I had never heard of this film, didn't know it existed, didn't even take much credence to it on the list until I realised after Blood Rain that it was another Uwe Boll film. Just no relationship, no thoughts, just
Just vibes.
Here it is. Were there vibes?
Oh, this is it. Yeah, I agree. Like, it's one of those ones I have to hold my hands up, and I probably said on the Blood Rain podcast, is that I didn't actually know who he was before the podcast. That's the joy of the podcast, is brought into our lives.
I think it's how people know that we decided to do this podcast, because I think if we'd have known, we wouldn't have done it.
That's true. We kind of didn't really do a bit of a recce of the list before diving in. We didn't really do our due diligence, but maybe that's for the best, because look at us now. So yeah, it's one of those ones where it got brought up that he's got quite a lot on there. So I definitely clicked through and had a look. But for me, starting the podcast, I was definitely intrigued by this, whether or not it was before I knew it was him or not, just because of how interesting the poster is. And I say interesting because it's not good, but
I like the poster.
I don't know, it's just the font kind of puts me off. But I think the concept of the poster, very noughties, very what's this about? Bit dark, bit spooky. So it's definitely one I was looking forward to. I didn't really look up what it was about until we've started recording, and as Shari had mentioned already, it is regarding paranormal investigators combating a supernatural threat. The film story is an adaptation of one of the Alone in the Dark games, Alone in the Dark: The New Nightmare from 2001. But yes, it is based on the video game series of the same name. It was out in 2005 as an action horror film, and it was written by a couple of guys that have done some of his other work. So Michael Roche and Peter Shearer have done Far Cry and House of the Dead 2. And also Elan Mastey did What If, that Daniel Radcliffe and Zoe Kazan film. How
Which
rad is that?
Adore.
It's
because
great.
I was Googling these
That's
writers,
a pretty fun movie.
Yeah, I think
one
so.
of my proper comfort, a little bit hungover, a little bit sad, or can't sleep. I want to watch. It helps because I'm completely and utterly obsessed and in love with Zoe Kazan.
Mm-hmm.
But he also then went on to write and produce on NBC's This Is Us, which is another I sad, I need cry, give me emotion. So
that is a very interesting trajectory.
Yeah.
Very interesting trajectory, but the other two writers not so unexpected. So the film is actually number 13 on the bottom 100, so it is right close to the top there, and it's got a 2.4 score on IMDb. So I think before we obviously head into chatting about the film, just a spoiler warning for listeners: if you do want to go alone in the dark and watch this film, please go ahead now and watch it and come back, because we are going spoiler heavy with our chat right now. So Alone in the Dark 2005. Sharia, I'm interested. What do you think? Did you watch? So you watched this before going in? This is a rewatch for you.
This is a rewatch for me. The first time I saw it was some years ago, just on a whim, because just I heard about Uwe Boll, and I was like, how does this rabbit hole go, sort of thing. And yeah, so this was a rewatch, there's, what do you want me to say about it?
I want to know what your initial reaction was when you watched it the first time, and I'm wondering, has that changed at all now you've rewatched?
My initial reaction was sort of nothing, and I think that's the worst thing for me when it comes to movies. If I don't like them, so something that whenever I talk about movies and stuff like that, something I try to do is I try to look for things that I can see as potentially positives, or something where I'm like, okay, that works, because I also don't really like the idea of just saying, hey, movie bad, and just calling it a day on that, so whenever I go into something like Alone in the Dark, where it's you've got these bad reviews, I say, let's see, maybe something can be looked at over here.
This is totally the ethos of the podcast, so I'm so glad you're talking about it with us.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But there are a couple of moments here. There are a couple of moments where I'm like, if you did this a little differently, this could have gone better. This scene, maybe, maybe you could have lit this scene better, or you could have probably edited this scene better, or, that could have been more effective. But the entire movie goes by, and I felt nothing. I had no emotion towards the characters. There was never a point where I was like feeling like there's this tension to it. Everything felt really slow to me, like a movie that's built up very tensely. Like it actually has a very, like, you know, crazy opening, like, you know, with the chase, you know. So I was like, wow, okay, momentum, you know, this is gonna be a fast movie. But then it just stops after that for the pretty much the entirety of the runtime, and it just, I was just like, what exactly did we gain? You know, like I don't feel like I gained much after watching it. That was my initial response to it.
I have to agree there. I think I sort of came out of the film going, what did we learn? What did we, like you say, what did we gain? What's changed now after I've seen that film? And I'm glad you pointed out the beginning, because I agree, actually, looking back. I thought, oh, shit, this is going to be quite fun. That the editing of like and the choreographing of the scene with Christian Slater, you know, being chased by the guy. And I thought, oh, this could be like maybe a bit cheesy, but also a bit fun. And I feel like it just doesn't really ever get that energy back, which is such a shame, considering it's, you know, the rest of it is very action packed. There's definitely some great cinematography and editing. I say great, I mean like fun, cheesy, noughties kind of, just has a bit of personality to it, and it was a bit more engaging, but I just don't think it sticks the landing or maintains that throughout the whole film, considering I was an hour in, or like 55 minutes in, and I was like, oh, it's gone quite fast, but like I couldn't tell you how much plot had happened, because it was just a case of, oh, these people are finally out there inciting incident, but there wasn't much for the characters or the plot to really, I mean, all of the interesting stuff was in the opening crawl, I have to say. What about you, Claire?
Like very, very similar. This was the first watch for me, and I just didn't even find it bad. I just found it really dull. I like halfway through my notes, I literally wrote, is this very hard to follow, or do I just keep losing attention? Because it just, I don't know what it could have done to grab my attention more, but it was really struggling to hold my attention. Like that opening, I mean, the opening crawl, I've said my opinions on opening crawls before, and Jesus Christ, that was not an opening crawl, that was, you know, the start of a dissertation. But then the stuff with the children in the orphanage I thought was very interesting, and I liked that, like creepy, like, oh, is there like sinister doings and tradings going on? And then we get this like very Matrix inspired over the top chase sequence, and then he's just walking around talking to his girlfriend and having meetings. And I'm also like, my biggest plot point was he attacked a police officer and stole his gun, and there's just no repercussions. He just continues to live his life. I was like, okay, this is the kind of film we're in for then.
Right.
But yeah, just very, very nothing. So interested, like, on your second watch, did you get more from it or less from it?
Well, I laughed a little bit more. There's a couple of points. There's a couple of points that really. And can I go into scenes already, or
go wild?
Oh yeah, please, like open season.
Well, right, our structure is very, very light,
non-existent.
Outstanding. So the chase scene, it starts, you know, pretty intense, but I just remember getting a laugh out of this time, the watch, rather than the last time. I don't know why. But he eventually grabs the gun from the policeman's holster, and he runs into that ice area and something. He shoots, and it hits. It's a direct hit to the guy in the heart. And he keeps moving.
Yeah, I know.
I'm so confused.
And there's a second shot in the same exact, like, in the heart. And he's like, I was like, what the hell? Like,
yeah, pure Michael Myers shit. Like, there was no recoil, there was no reaction. It was just machine.
And I would argue, like, hey, maybe it's just adrenaline. This guy's just, like, you know, fueled up right now. That's all that's taking him in on these last moments. But you can't go that long, even with 2 shots to the heart. Like, Jesus.
Well, because it gives us then the kind of throwaway comment later on where it's like, oh, he was fused with this demon, and that's why he gained supernatural powers and why he can't stop. And I was like, we needed that info earlier.
But then, even later on, when Edward's friend John shows up and he starts to attack him, 1 shot down. He's
right.
dead.
Right.
Yeah.
So why is
how did
this
he
guy
go
so
then?
special?
Exactly. Like, what's with this guy? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
And I think that's kind of a running issue with the film for me, is that there are potentially interesting ideas here, and we don't necessarily need to know all the answers, but if you've got something that makes people go, huh, what's that all about, you need to give some emphasis and some weight to when you explain it. And I was with you, Claire, in that everything's kind of just thrown away, like spoken in amongst a bunch of exploratory dialogue. Expository? I can't say it. You know what I mean? Expository dialogue. Thank you. It's just thrown away, and then you do miss it if you're not engaged in like proper staring. And it doesn't help that I do rely on subtitles. I didn't have subtitles on Prime.
Where were the subtitles? I'm so
I was like, okay, I know that I'm over relying on them, but at the same time, because I did miss bits here and there, it does feel like you kind of go, oh, hold on. Is this really overcomplicated? Is it convoluted? Or have I just missed it? Or is it just really boring? And it's just such a shame because, and like I said about that opening novel at the beginning, which basically explained the whole, what should have kind of been revealed, in my opinion, potentially in the third act. It should have been building to us understanding that, considering it's a thriller and they set everything up of why it's happening, who they are, what's going on. You kind of left with, why am I watching the rest of the film? Because I'm not learning anything more about why this is happening. I'm just seeing that someone else discover it, which really isn't interesting from this kind of genre's point of view. It's the opposite of something like Memento, which keeps you so in the dark, like for so long, and you're along that journey with that person, understanding it all. But you know, the cruel or the opening text was there because apparently the plot was too complicated for test audiences, so they decided to explain it.
That was one of my kind of questions that I didn't get answered, so thank you for doing better research than me. Because I was wondering, was the cruel and even the voiceover added before, like was it in the script, or was it added after post-production because it felt like it was needed? So thank you for doing your work.
Yeah, I think no worries. I think it would have I understand why it would have been a bit complicated for test audiences without that, but I think it gives you a reason to pay attention, at least to try and understand what's going on, because it's one of those, oh, you've dumbed it down, what's left for me to gain from this, really. Any thoughts about the story in general, about sort of what they're dealing with and what's revealed, what Christian Slater characters Edward is going through? Is that something you liked, or?
I think the writing is the weakest element of this film. I really think that the biggest flaw and the reason this film is on the list is a poor script, both in terms of dialogue and in terms of, setting us up, setting that tension, setting those, second act reveals and giving us something to root for and follow. Because of all of that, you're left with kind of bog standard. Christian Slater could be anyone. I to be honest, don't know much. I know he was an orphan, and I know he's part of some secret government agency, and that he likes pretty women and shooting things. Like that's not really much of a character type.
No.
But I feel like we spoke about this before, maybe when we did Blood Rain, that's exactly a perfect character type for a video game. If you were creating a video game, that's exactly the key amount of information you need to have a perfect video game character. So it's that kind of issue between what makes a good video game and what makes a good movie, and how do you gel them to make a good video game adaptation. And I think, maybe we give them a bit of grace that they worked with the character that they had. I don't know.
I mean, in the game, he is a private investigator, but he's going around to like different haunted houses and mansions trying to find creepy crawlies. So, technically that part is somewhat in here, except he's a paranormal investigator, as he calls himself in this one. So they've got that part down. I just think it's a case where it was like, so that thing you mentioned, like, there's this twist around him, the fact that he's one of them or something, like he was part of this experiment. We get that early on.
Oh yeah,
So
we know
even-
that from like the first scene, don't we?
Yeah.
Exactly. So we got that. So when the reveal sort of happens, it was like, oh, we were all from here. It's like, well, we knew like an hour ago we got this information. So I'm
Yeah, you're
confused
right.
as
That
to-
doesn't even make sense from a character perspective of that reveal, because if you've gone in and you knew you were all from the orphanage and you knew that all of these other kids had this worm bug inside of them, and then you found out that you did too, but it doesn't work, it doesn't do its job, and you were like, oh, maybe it's because I was electrocuted when I ran away and hid in that giant fuse box. That's the reveal. That is it happening, right? What difference does seeing a name on a bed make? You're right. That's so dumb.
Exactly.
I didn't even realize how dumb that was.
Yeah, and, I mean, it just kind of takes you out of the rest of the movie then, because that's like in the first 25 minutes or so. It's like after he passes out and all that stuff, and they're like, well, we pulled this out of the guy who was chasing you. Well, there's some radiation on you. Turns out you have that thing too, but it's dead. Well, okay, now there's 50 minutes of movie left, and what do I need to know now? Like, because now you've also given me the method to stop them if I need to, which is zap. Yeah. So I just which they do not do. By
no, you're right. Actually, like, I'm not gonna lie. I must have checked out a little bit because I think the action scenes kind of washed over me a bit. But they just did a whole shooty bang bang method, right? They just kind of
they love the
first.
shooty bang bang.
Yeah.
Many,
so it's just
many,
like, what's the
many
point?
Shoot.
Yeah. So if they're these like new creatures, which is what these kids who have now grown into adults have had something implanted in them, and then they can turn into these. Do they turn into the creatures, or are they're just the weird zombie things?
I don't know.
Because there's also these xenomorphy kind of creatures too, and I think they come out from the gate that's opened, right?
Oh, I thought that they got the kind of special powers, and then they eventually morphed into the creatures.
Right,
after,
that makes
like,
sense.
a certain amount of time. But no, I think I'm wrong, and you're right. That
Or maybe it's a bit of both.
Creatures come out, and
maybe it's a bit
otherwise, why
yeah, again,
it's
it's just
xenomorphic creatures for years. Like, if there's a time period in which it takes to be infected and turn.
So wait, what was in the ship? The thing that came out of the ship then?
That was one of those creatures protecting one of the elements that the doctor used to open the gate.
Right.
So the xenomorphy thing's good. They don't want us to open the gate. They're protecting.
I think someone put it in the box to stop someone else opening the gate. I think it was like inferred that the tribe did that. That they basically
say that, like,
they basically
back in the day that would have been spreading it to the ends of the earth, but now
so they travel. Yeah. But then again, it's like, okay, how did they do that? But they're also been wiped from the earth.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel very reassured that all three of us are a bit unsure about this, and it wasn't just me not paying attention. But you're right. It is hard to care when even like within characters, paper thin characters, you can kind of get over that if you're interested in the plot, at least, because there's still something to watch for if you're like, I wonder how this story is going to end, even if it's predictable. But if you already know everything you need to know about where it's going, and you don't really care about who the characters are, what they've done, what their motivations are, because it's kind of like you said, Claire, it's like one of those examples where we've got enough defining characteristics to give you an idea of who this guy is, but you are projecting your sort of, you don't need to know because it's just a vessel for which to play the game or something. Yeah. It's not the same as watching a film. Then there's nothing I'm really gaining for it, especially if all of the set pieces are just like, especially in the last 40 minutes or so, just pretty much all very samey, watching these creatures run around or the zombies happen and shooting at them. There was a few bits of gore that I quite liked that was just gave me something to go, oh, that's interesting, piqued my interest there, something different to watch rather than these little xenomorphy things run around. And I don't think the CGI was too bad.
For 2004, 2005, I thought it was fine. Like, it wasn't groundbreaking, but I definitely have seen worse. You know, I always hark back to the games. What are they called? Quidditch games in Harry Potter. That's my baseline of terrible CGI.
Oh, you don't think they're good? I just never even thought about it.
Those ones in the
honest.
first couple of films, they're like elastic people. So that tends to
Oh,
be
you're
my
right.
baseline.
The background people, yeah, for sure. But it's interesting because apparently after execs read the green draft of the shooting script, the film got an additional $10 million, and Uwe Boll put that money into the special effects. So I'd be interested to see what they looked like before.
There's a making of documentary on YouTube and a good portion. It's about 20 minutes long, and at least 5, if not 10 minutes, is given to the VFX artists. And unfortunately, I did find myself kind of glazing over because I glazed over in the film, so the making of wasn't anymore. But the VFX guys did take a lot of time in what they were doing, actually, especially for back in that time. Did seem impressive, and they did seem to know what they were doing, and they did so the big scene in the middle where it's like a kind of like it's got like heavy metal and it's like a montage. Christian Slater and Tara Reid shooting.
Is that like when they like zoom into the gun?
No,
or was that earlier on?
When he shoots the guy in the fish market.
Yeah.
That's true.
This is just
true.
like them like bang 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 with some heavy metal music and it like loads of flashes and you see.
That was cool. I like that.
So that was all done. They had each of the individual characters on a black screen and just did like a 360, loads of different angles of them.
Right.
And then they put all of those together and then put the creatures. We keep calling them a xenomorph, which I think we've just stolen from Alien. Like
because that's just because they look like those. But I don't know what their official name in the film is.
They were calling them Xenos in the movie too.
Oh, Xenos.
Were they?
Because he ripped a lot from Alien, so I guess why not just rip that too?
Why not just full on just take it?
But that scene, when you look at what they started with to what they came up with, when I watched the film, thought that sequence was ridiculous. But then after seeing the work that went into it, I was like, okay, good for them. So,
I think there are definitely little bits of not possibility. There's a little bit of ambition and personality in a few bits here, and the VFX is something where it's just like, okay, cool, I see where you're going here. It's got that kind of grungy, dark, noughties, like heavy metal like feel, especially with the soundtrack, and I think it really comes into its best when they are doing the action set pieces, which clearly they put most of their thought and time into. But I personally, action's not my absolute favorite. So I feel like, a lot of people are like, we've said before, some of the films, like if you like a real action heading, you just like, it means that you're gonna be fine watching like not so great, cheesy kind of, it's the same as if you're like really into comedy and you don't mind a bit of a shit one, but if it, like for me, like they really have to be something that's interesting, either stylized or I really care about the characters and the motivation or what's going on. So I'm glad that they were stylized, because otherwise you really would have lost me with this plot. So I'm glad they had those moments in it.
It's interesting, not to interrupt you.
That was the end of my thought.
You called it a thriller, you called it an action film, I think you called it something else. I don't think any of us have actually described it as a horror film, which I think is how it was marketed.
That's true.
And like, I don't know how you guys felt, but I was like, when I went into it, I was expecting a horror, especially when I was told this is a bad film by a bad director. I was like, this might be
especially from the poster as well.
I'm like, this might be schlocky, this might be fun. We've had this issue on the podcast before that I'm quite strict with my genre definitions, but there was nothing about this that was horror to me in any way, shape, or form, and I find it very strange it was marketed as such.
I would say one scene tried to be horror. It's the one with the security guard. That's really about it. The lights go out in the museum. Yeah.
And I think that was probably the worst scene in the whole thing, if you're gonna there was this weird score that happened where they ran over to the garden, and it was this real building strings moment, and it just felt like I was like, what kind of C movie am I watching here? Like, it just felt so out of place. And I think them creeping around the museum there, and like you say, they're trying to build tension, it just didn't work for me. I ended up finding it quite not funny, but it just felt super cheesy, and it just didn't work on any level for me, unfortunately.
I would have See, I would have bought into it if it was sort of committing to the cheesiness the entire time.
Yeah.
Like
Pick a lane.
when they step outside. Yeah, exactly. Like when they step outside, Tara Reid says she's like, whenever I'm with you, I feel like, something's wrong, like something's going wrong, and then you eventually see the guard suddenly all of a sudden. I'm like, that would have worked with the score if you knew what you were doing. Like the tone would have worked. It's like they've tried stuff like that even in recent movies, like even like Megan had something like that, I think. But
yeah,
I liked Megan.
Exactly.
I liked,
but
Megan.
It's like. No, I like Megan too, but it's like, again, it committed to what it was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes. And that's what made it enjoyable, because it knew what it was. It was self-aware. Whereas I feel like the overall tone of this film was trying to be grungy, action. Like, there's horror elements, absolutely, but it's for me, it's action first and foremost as a genre. I felt like the opening fight with the two-shot guy, you should call him, I feel like it really leaned into that. It's that sort of Kerrang and Scuzz music video, like darkly graded, interestingly edited, and like just had a bit of personality, even if it didn't work for everybody and even if it wasn't great. It was something interesting to watch, and that's sort of the tone I felt like it was trying to keep throughout the whole thing. It was a bit more of like a, like an less, I don't want to use Blade as an example because I've not watched it properly, but like obviously leaning more into like the action, the Matrixy kind of, we're fighting monsters, but it's not the spooky, like scary run away kind of side of horror. It's these are just weird looking dogs, let's shoot them down kind of macho like way of, you've got the whole army element in it, or it's not really, but it's like the paranormal team. And also like I don't know what your guys' opinion was, but I thought it was absolutely hilarious how it was just like completely made in reality that they had a paranormal sector of law authority. Just like, I don't know, they didn't sort of made it clear that if it was supposed to be like this secret thing or if it was meant to be like a little bit of an X-Files-y kind of let them investigate, but we all kind of don't believe in it. It was like fully taken seriously branch of some kind of FBI or police organization.
Yeah. Like it just seemed like something everybody knew. Which is a little weird. Like I don't know why I was thinking of Transformers, but Transformers has that Sector 7 thing, like the government agency, and it's the same thing where it's like nobody knows it exists. It's like these agents will just come by. They're like, we investigate, and these extraterrestrial robots. It's like, yeah, you exist, but no one in the world knows you guys exist.
Yeah.
It's like that. In this case, it really did seem like I can walk into an office and be like, oh hey guys, ghost outside, so just come on over, and it's
more Ghostbusters than anything.
Exactly.
They might as well had an ad on the TV. Call 713 or
713.
713. That's it.
It's just. But yeah, that I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like it. But then in some cases, I don't know if everybody did know. Maybe that's why the police were like not reacting. They're like, guys, you work for 713. Oh, in that case, shoot away, guy. It's all good.
Yeah.
I just would have loved a scene just on the phone where someone just chastised him, being like, leave, like, don't, like, we're gonna have to fix the issue with the local law now. Like, thanks to that, and him being like, oh, it was part of the job, just
kind of tell us what world we're in.
Yeah,
exactly.
Shows that they have this extra jurisdiction, that like they have fixers,
and maybe it's not a case of like it was one way or another, but unfortunately it was just kind of, I don't want to say lazy writing, but just inattentive writing, in a sense of just because you believe it and you and it's in your world, you've got to remember you have an audience to tell a story to. And I think it's completely fine with a lot of films where you go, hey, this is the world we live in, and you kind of accept it, but it needs some kind of showing or telling, just to kind of help the audience go, okay, I'm bought in, I get this world, I'm here, I'm with you. It doesn't have to be realistic by any means, but yeah, just a little bit more slow it down. Like there's a lot going on here, and I wasn't able to kind of it's almost as if everything was shooting past in dialogue, and there wasn't enough really anything to grab hold of, if that makes sense, to kind of go, oh, that's interesting, or that connects to that. And it's just kind of just flying past because they just kind of want to get to the action set piece and skip around. And like I said, all of the interesting, if they hadn't have sort of revealed it in the opening lines, we could have been on that journey with them, and they didn't have to explain everything. It's almost like they've shot themselves in the foot by going, here's everything about what this film's about, and now we're kind of going to tell you a load of stuff as we go along. So you're like, okay, cool, and you let it wash over you, and you're like, no, I didn't learn anything new because I knew it from the beginning. Anything you said didn't really relate to what was going on screen, because all it was really was Christian Slater and Tara Reid looking around, talking to people, and then shooting stuff. So, and like, even like the scene on the boat when they get the sort of like the gold chest and the doctor gets the final bit out to open the gates to hell or whatever. It's like just very like, so what? You only really get the interesting bit of, oh, why we're here is when he does open it and you realise there's a lot of, it's fine. I'm rambling a little bit now, but like, it's just when there's so much other stuff that's so inconsequential, even the stuff that does drive the plot forward, you're like, okay, fine, yeah, that got what we need to know, blah, blah, blah. I had to rewind it a bit at that scene because I thought he was locked into the room that he was hiding in. And then it turns out he just let himself out. So what he'd done was open the box so that the creature killed everyone, and then he took what he needed. I don't know. I feel like even with stuff like that, it just could have been a bit more pacey. The editing just didn't feel purposeful at all. I'm just going in on this scene just as an example because I remember it really clearly. But like you'd have a 2-shot of the guys talking, and then you'd have where you look at the location, and then you'd kind of jump back in again, and then you'd like completely move the camera to another part. It just felt like the editing was really like wasn't purposeful. It wasn't trying to tell the story. It was just, what shots have we got that day? Okay, let's just chuck them in, and it felt like a little bit like that throughout the whole film, but that scene specifically.
It sort of gave me a little bit of the School of Zack Snyder filmmaking and editing, in that there were certain sequences that I felt like, rather than saying what is the best way to film, construct and edit this to tell our story and our emotion, it was, what's going to look the coolest? Oh, this one angle looked really cool, and let's put it in slow-mo, even though it doesn't tell us anything about the story or move the plot or the story in any way. Yeah. It's just going to look really cool for 5 seconds. And I hate that kind of filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do think Snyder's visual sense is better than this.
Oh, better. But he does have a bad habit occasionally of doing that in fight sequences.
Yeah. He is a visual director first, plot director second, like, which is fine. It's not like a thing. It's just, but I think the issue here as well, like, we've gone back to the opening crawl a couple of times. You don't even have to go there. There's a point where he enters his like apartment or whatever it is, like where he's living. And there's the monologue going on where he's talking to, I guess, the audience randomly in bursts out of nowhere. So he does it a couple
Which is
of
why
times.
I was like, that has to be a post-production because it just was very in and out.
Yeah, but the problem is that when you listen in on what he's talking about, that's his entire backstory, which would have been way more interesting to see actually play out, because he talks about his rise and fall at 713 and like Stephen Dorff and all that. I'm like, dude, we want to see this. Like, what happened here? And because that would have made sense as to, okay, this is why this guy's important. Now people are chasing him. Now this is what he does. It would have made a little more sense. It would also have made more sense as to why him and Dorff have this like animosity towards each other, where there's that kind of thing. Because it did seem like there was this, like, oh, I have your position now. It's like, I'm trying to prove to be a better, leader than you. I'm like, well, I would have got that feeling if I'd ever met you before this exact moment. Who are you again? But I had that. I mean, it's funny because it also came up, like the time that this movie was made, that very grungy, like loud music kind of thing. This is early 2000s. It was all over the place. The specific one I was thinking of is that this came around the same time as, I think, Doom, the one with Dwayne Johnson.
Oh, okay.
And Yeah, same thing where it's like dark alleyways and you're shooting and you're trying to make a movie out of it. I was just like, wow, both these movies came out at the exact same time. Both are not good. So
See, it really reminded me, which I think is a couple years later, of Alien vs Predator. Like very similar. Like
that was
especially with like the tribe and the going back to pre all of that time.
It was just more like we're copying films that we admire, like Alien, but we've forgotten what it was that made it good.
Yeah, you're going too deep into the lore. You're not
bring the creature around and shoot.
Yeah, you're not thinking how to tell a good story. You're not thinking about how to build tension. You're just going, it's that case of, doesn't everyone want to know where the xenomorphs came from? They came from this really old tribe, and someone opened the door, and
we cared about Ripley. Ripley was what everyone gave a shit about. Like
again, and this is exactly why this doesn't work, because they don't allow us to want to know more about Christian Slater's character. And when you were talking, Sharon, just then, it's almost as if they skipped the first part of the script, which was, and I know we had the flashback at the beginning, and that's fine, but then they missed the bit where it goes, oh, here he is now, and what he's doing now, and sort of setting the scene for who he is and what he does, because it just went straight to kind of the inciting incident of now he's being chased. There was even a minute of the normality of his life and who he is, and us getting to know him as a character. But I don't really know how much that would have made a difference anyway, because that works when you're then on board with that character, learning things, and as it's uncovered, that's the proxy. If you're just going to know everything straight away anyway, I don't know how much it would have saved it. But it's those little things where there are some rules for a reason. They're there to be broken, absolutely, but you can't just ignore them for the sake of, because you can't be bothered.
I mean, I get the idea of wanting to jump into the action instantly, and that's again, it's just you gotta have something to like sort of connect it. I thought the one moment where it felt like you could have done something, especially when you're first introduced to adult version of this character. He's sitting next to that kid in the plane, and the kid just starts going off about dream. I'm like, bro, what? But but the conversation he's having, that the kid, whatever he's saying, and then eventually he sort of contradicts that and said, well, okay. First of all, conversations like that do not happen. No. A kid doesn't randomly start talking to you in the middle of a flight about what, dreams are like. That's not a thing that ever happens.
It's like, how do we get him to say, like, as close to the name of the title as possible? When he's on a plane, let's just get someone to, like, talk to him. Yeah, it's none of this stuff's ever built in. Go on.
It's trying to be shorthand for, like, this guy doesn't care. Like, he's gonna upset a kid because he takes no shit from anyone. He has his own code. And, he's just gonna tell that kid they're wrong, and he knows better than everyone.
No, that's a good point. I mean, I have nothing to refute that one.
You're right. It's almost as if him saying, like, that's referring back to the point that he used to work for the paranormal part of the agency, and, like, there are things in the dark that scare you. But it just, again, I don't know about you guys, but I think because it just doesn't give you any visual cues, or it just doesn't explain itself or show itself in the right way, that you just go, okay, this guy thinks, you've seen the flashback of him running away from something, that something scared him as a kid. And then you think, oh, maybe he's referring to that. But then it turns out it's like stuff's in the wrong order for it to make sense, so you know what it's referring to, especially because he's then like, I've lost my train of thought, but essentially he's just like, oh no, there's stuff in the dark that scares you. But you find out then he's lost his memory for being a kid anyway. So the thing you think he's referencing can't be it, but you don't know the thing he's referencing until after he said it. It's little things like that where it just, again, I think that's why you're like, why do I care about this stuff? Have I missed something? Because it's just constructively, it's really hard to follow.
I think it didn't help for me that scene is also the most brightly lit scene of the film. And he's like, my mummy said don't be scared of the dark. I'm like, why are we talking about the dark? It's fucking daylight.
Yeah.
It's really irking.
It's so shoehorned in because they just want... none of the stuff's really natural, like with the dialogue. It just feels like, oh, we need to say this so that the audience know this. Surely there are better ways of doing half of this stuff, which
I have a question. So, the curator of the museum, at one point, you find out he has one of the creatures caged up or something,
Mm-hmm.
and he's extracting blood and injecting it into himself. What did that add to the movie?
Well, the fact that I forgot about it means not much.
Yeah, it did add.
Does it ever come back? Do we ever get a callback to it?
It never comes back. I figured he was turning himself into.
He was trying to, yeah.
Or like maybe that protects him because they don't attack him because he smells like them.
Maybe.
Never comes up again.
But again, like you say, what's the point in showing that if it's not going to give us some kind of...
Don't they do that in Predator? Like they cover themselves in... Oh, they just cover themselves in mud, don't they? They don't cover themselves in Predator blood.
No.
It's just to cool them down.
That was just a mud thing where it was like, okay, I can't...
I think she does in Prey. I think she puts it on her face so her face glows, but I think that's just for pure aesthetic reasons.
I'm not saying... There's definitely some sort of film where they figure out if they cover themselves in the scent of the creature won't...
Zombie stuff tends to be like that as well.
Yeah. But yeah, maybe it was a hark back to that just never paid off. Or maybe I'm giving it too much credit.
Unfortunately, I think you are, because I think that half of this stuff. I think they just thought, oh, that would be cool to show. I'm really struggling with words here to sort of describe it, but it's almost as if they're not using stuff as building blocks. They're just going, oh, this would be cool to show that he is crazy, to show that he is really obsessed with this. And like to show that he's not like, it's quite shocking and we wouldn't do that, you're right, Claire, it's shorthand. It's all shorthand for stuff to say, this is what we want you to think, this is what you want you to think. But it just doesn't, when you put it all together, it's like, number one, it's like, okay. And number two, it's like, well, what's the consequence of that? How does it fit into it's the opposite of the sum of its parts. It all falls apart when you put it together.
So exactly. I will give Uwe Boll a little bit of credit here. There was a very interesting interview of him that only came out like 3 days ago on VentureBeat.com talking about I think the title was Why Video Game Film Adaptations Used to Suck and Don't Anymore, and it's an interview with Uwe Boll because he is one of the kind of early video game adaptation creators. And one of the things he kind of mentions in the article, not specifically talking about this film, but his films in general, is that he was often told by studios that he had to make them shorter, that they had to be cut, that they had to be within a neat time frame. Mm-hmm. So perhaps there is an element that there was meant to be more, and because of studio feedback, make it shorter, make it snappier, because he also talks about how he wanted a lot of his films to be much darker, but he kept being told by studios to keep it light, keep it PG-13. So there is maybe a tiny element. Maybe I'm just trying to be nice to everyone today. That's nice. This was studio interference and not bad direction. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, because there's plenty of other directors that have made brilliant films despite studio interference.
But we know it's a factor, right? We know. I think it's important to always remember that something like that can happen. I think it's just... Yes, it's a reason potentially for him, but for other people, they maybe are talented enough that he's really gonna hate me now. Are talented enough that they don't it's not as much of a barrier, or maybe some people lean on it as a bit of an excuse to excuse away that it's not a very well made product, or they truly do believe that it's still good. But I personally feel like there was too much meandering and too much exposition to warrant that. It's not a super long film, but given that not a lot happens, they could have done so much more with the time that they had.
With the runtime,
that it's kind of like... But that being said, I think it's probably worth mentioning that there was an original draft of the script written by Blair Erickson, and it was actually rejected by Uwe Boll, and then apparently that script was much more faithful to the games. Obviously, Cheryl, you mentioned, the haunted house element of going in the games, and I've had a look at screenshots of the games, and they do not remind me of this film at all.
No. So he has also spoken, both in that interview I just referenced and in previous interviews, that when he signed up to do this film, he made an agreement with the game developers, and this was not meant to be based off of one of their games. Mm-hmm. They were meant to base a game off of this film, and it was meant to be a tie-in game, and then that never came through. And
so that wasn't the Nightmare one, no?
No, there was meant to be another game that was going to be a tie-in with this film, which is why this film doesn't have that many elements of the existing games other than his name. But he is... because it was Atari and they got shut down, and I think his quote is, "You can't put that guilt on me. It wasn't me," because he's blaming the fact that he was told he had free reign.
That's fine.
So that's why it's not a bad film. But I would also kind of say, even without a game adaptation, your film should still stand alone as a Disney film on its own.
And also, what's the point in making an adaptation of a game if you're not going to adapt the game? That's what he's just said, right? He's saying, I'm going to take the intellectual property of the game, do something completely different using the names, and then they're going to have to copy me. But then they didn't, for whatever reason, either they went under or the film went
under.
Film was so bad as well that they just didn't want to copy that. And then he's like, well, it's not my fault. So I see his point, but also I see the exact opposite of the point in the same breath. And yeah, the point I was sort of making about the script changes, that that's where it sort of was noted that it went from more of a thriller into an action film. And Blair Erickson has been noted as talking about his relationship with Bowl on Something Awful, and I would like to read this whole quote out because I think it's expertly said. But, just the flair in which he describes this. Thankfully, Dr. Ball was able to hire his loyal team of hacks to crank out something much better than our crappiest story, and add in all sorts of terrifying horror movie essentials like opening gateways to alternate dimensions, bimbo blonde archaeologists, sex scenes, mad scientists, slimy dog monsters, special army forces designed to battle slimy CG dog monsters, Tara Reid, Matrix slow motion gun battles and car chases. Oh yeah, and a 10-minute opening backstory scroll read aloud to the illiterate audience. The only people able to successfully miss all the negative reviews. And I don't know much about what this Blair has done since, but I mean, reading that's made me want to potentially get them back in the game if they're not. I think there's a lot of disdain there, and that's fair enough. Because, you know, clearly if someone believes the work that they're doing, and then it must be really hard in the writing process to have something that's yours and it gets completely changed and you're somehow still connected to it, or it's not that your work was rejected, but it was completely transformed into something else and then lost potentially.
Well, I would love to know, I can't remember his name, but we referenced him at the top of the film, the writer that then went on to do What If and work on This Is Us. He is still credited on this film, but he has no other links to Uwe Boll from what I could see, whereas the other two credited writers consistently worked with Boll. I'd love to get that third writer's opinion on how much did those two come in and edit on him.
I have to assume that all the backstory stuff, all of the stuff that seems potentially that I have to assume then that was him.
That guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Like because it really does seem like he brought in some of those more intriguing elements, and then they eventually sort of worked off of that as best as they could, and then eventually factored in the rest of it. There was something that actually I was thinking while I was listening to this entire thing about how many changes were being made and you're trying to do things differently from the game. You know, when the conversations, if I was having this with someone recently, we were talking about recent adaptations of video games, some of them that were very successful, something like The Last of Us or something like that, and it was like, or even like the Mario movie recently or something. Like they're faithful to the material, but they're also making changes and being able to do things a little differently along the way. And so I think the conversation we were having was like, well, since they're making changes, like, you know, is it possible to say it's faithful? Then how do you know that it's a great game adaptation? I said, well, the reason it works is that because changes aside, you can still see these two things and say, this is that game. You know, and it feels like it still captures that as best as possible. Like, for instance, you know, in The Last of Us, Joel and Ellie in the show are not written word for word like the games. Yeah. They're doing some stuff differently. And similarly to the Mario movie, Mario, Luigi, Peach, they're not written exactly like, you know, they're in the games. But the essence of that is there. Like, you know, it does feel like it captures what makes the games special.
Yes.
And I feel like that's the thing studios, especially with those adaptations of games early on, all of this time in these years, that's what it missed. It's why a lot of them failed. It's like, you have to know that despite the fact that you're making those changes, you don't lose what it is. So even if it went with this premise that we're watching, maybe if you're so much in a museum with this movie, make it have that feeling of, going through a haunted
Yes.
mansion or a haunted house. Like I should be worried about what's on the corners every time, or, have that sense of tension. So it does come down to that as well. If you can do that, then you've got something going.
Yeah.
That was
Bowl proposed in this VentureBeat article that part of the reason that, and Mario and Last of Us were both cited because they've been such big successes this year in 2023, is that now, it might have been the interviewer rather than Bowl, that it's because they are involving the creators of the games, the people behind the games in these processes, so it's more of a collaboration rather than, as Bowl says, back in the day, these big kind of older studio execs just wanted the money.
Yeah,
like,
and they buy the
team made money
property,
over there,
they give it
will
to the
buy
people.
property. Yeah, and they don't care what it's about, and
No.
that's been cited heavily for the original Super Mario Brothers movie,
The Bob Hoskins one.
Is it the 80s or 90s one?
98.
98.
I still haven't seen that, but I need to. It's on the
It's on
list,
Amazon
isn't it?
now. We can all watch it whenever we want. But like Nintendo just said, we don't care what you do. Like, do whatever you want. We have no
93.
interest.
I'm sorry.
No,
93.
That's all right. Still the 90s. But yeah, they just went, do what you want. We really don't care. Whereas now,
Interesting.
the one that came out in 2023, Nintendo were like, so this is the law, and this is how Mario looks, and these are how he needs to be dressed.
And I wonder how
And
much
it's
has come from the fact that that the reaction to people and the kind of, they realize they have to do that now if it's going to be successful. Maybe back in the day, these video game adaptations were a little bit of a PR exercise. For the video games, it was like a funnel of ideas for the execs to buy, and it was kind of just a bit like a quid pro quo deal. That they kind of.
We didn't live in an IP society either, though. Like
we live in an IP society.
We do though. Like, look at the
You're right.
look at
You're
the films
right.
that have come out in the last 15 years. Like, so yeah, when you're buying, we want to make a film based off your successful property. They were like, sure, whatever. Like, no one's gonna go see that. Who's gonna watch a video game adaptation? Whereas now, there's like hundreds of people employed solely just to be going around looking for the right video game to adapt. So it's just as well. I think it's the changing landscape. I think comic book films obviously have a lot to answer for in that aspect. But when we've seen the difference of them from the comic books that were coming out in the late 90s, early 2000s to what come out now, again, that faithful adaptation, that buying in, the collaboration with comic book makers.
Yeah.
Turns out if you're making something based on something, people tend to enjoy it if you actually base it off the thing.
Yeah, but even then, you can make your changes accordingly. Like, the things over here, they're not exactly like the comic went.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
For the people listening, there's posters of Infinity War and Endgame behind me. But like, Infinity War and Endgame don't play out like the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, But
there's enough.
Exactly.
I think you hit the nail on the head with the word essence. The reason, and I think, and I listened to a lot of the podcasts that were released for The Last of Us. They had Craig Mattson, Neil Druckmann, and I can't remember the name of the guy that voices Joel. He hosted it, and it was really fascinating. Troy Baker. Going through each episode. I just played the game, and I was watching as they were releasing the episodes, and it was really interesting. And something that really stuck with me was this idea of they wanted to take the best parts of what made the game, and it was so beloved and successful. But the key word was adaptation. It's not a copy. It's adapting for the medium of TV. And they said if they had adapted it for a film, it would have been different as well. Obviously, not just the runtime, but the way that they did stuff. And it's things like they use as an example. There's it's not a spoiler, but it's setting the world of where Joel is, and understanding the sort of violent death around him. You do that in the game. You walk through. You're the character. And you see people being shot who are infected around you and everything. But what they did in the show was something very different, and they showed a very heart-wrenching sort of story about a child being infected. And they said it's because if you go straight into the violence on TV, audiences' brains are very different when they're playing a game versus watching a film. And there should be a lot of respect and understanding to try and understand how that works. And I think I'm very grateful to be watching entertainment where people are looking at art like that. But I just don't think that was something front of mind for people 20 years ago, and that's fine. But it's great that but then again, another example that came to mind that didn't do this was, and it funny enough is also a Naughty Dog production video game, is Uncharted. Yes. So I watched that last year. I hadn't played Uncharted, but I'm very excited to play it soon. What I understood was it didn't capture the essence of the game. There was a lot of changes made, and it ended up very much being a cookie cutter action game that, whilst it may have appealed to people who didn't play the game, why are you calling it Uncharted then? Like, what about this is Uncharted for the people that name is going to bring in, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll give it the defense on that one, because in the third game, you get to play young Nathan Drake for a little bit, and the movie sort of gave you the idea that, you know, he's becoming that version.
They needed an origin story.
To the games, wasn't it?
So and even in the game, in the third one, you get to play the part where you meet Sully. Mark Wahlberg is playing him in the game, in the movie. So I'm okay with that sort of being in there. Like,
it's it's not on the bad end. I don't think. I think there's just an example of when it can miss the mark in the essence point of view.
Mm-hmm. But I did not. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, box office wise, I think. Yeah.
But even just from a critic standpoint and from a game thing, it was like, because I watched it, I thought it was fine. It's not my kind of film. I didn't know anything about. I just went to see it because it was on. There was nothing else out that weekend. But it was kind of one of the things that came up a lot in reference to it was unsuccessful both as a critical movie and as an adaptation, that it just missed that mark. It did not do the thing it was solely meant to do.
It did, yeah. And I've played all 5 Uncharted games, so I was like watching after that, and I was like, yeah, there are things missing here. Not nearly like Alone in the Dark, though. I feel like there's a big gap.
There's a scale still here, yeah, but it's nice to see people moving more into this, respect of the IP, but it's just because they're like, even from like a bit more of a cynical point of view, they're realizing that that's what makes it successful, that's what makes money. And I'd be interested to understand a little bit more about the motivations behind adapting this game, and how much of it was, we kind of just want to utilize an intellectual property that we already have, Atari can make a bit of money, versus that's a draw for audiences because they know the game. Like, I don't know how famous the game and successful the game was at the time.
From what I was reading around, I got the impression, I can't remember where I read this, sorry, very bad citations from me today, but that Bowl was actively just going around seeing what rights to games there were, because he mentioned he wanted to do, I think it was the Hitman film he had wanted to do, but he didn't get the rights to that, but he was just going around seeing what video games that are out there that are relatively well known, that I can buy the rights to for a relatively small price and adapt for. Because that's the thing, I think we mentioned it in the Blood Rain episode, we don't particularly rate Bowl as a director, but it seems like from anything I've read from people talking about working with him or interacting with him, he seems like a brilliant producer. And he got all of these films in under the line, within the budget, within the time, small productions. Yeah, they turned out they weren't that successful. He continuously cites that they were extremely successful in the DVD market, and that while he never recouped on box office, he always recouped in home video sales. So, you know, maybe he was just ahead of his time in seeing what there would be a market for. Yeah. And
he just didn't necessarily have the eye
to collaborate with other people.
Kind of not hold it so close to his chest.
The shit out of these.
Yeah.
I mean, I would argue that if it was all direct to DVD, he would have made a killing on the market. Like, that would have, like, at that time especially, direct to DVD, he would have been top of the charts. You know, but then, you know, pulling together what he did to make the movies, you know, that's why I also, like, I take him on, like, not to, like, deride someone as a director just because, you know, movies did not work. I'm like, if you're making a movie, you obviously got something, you know? Like, you know, there's
someone believes in you.
You know? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like, I mean, I can't just walk into, like this Lionsgate distributed this and I can be like, give me $20 million. I want to make a movie right now. Like, I'm not gonna get $20 million off the fly. You know, obviously, if someone's giving you that money, you got something. Like, even if it's a total accumulation after a while, that is, you know.
Lionsgate are very eager to point out that they did not fund this film, they just inherited it, and they only paid for the distribution. They were very keen to have that noted.
But see, still got that money from somewhere, right?
You got that money from somewhere.
That's very hilarious.
Yeah, I just read that 3 times in 3 different articles that Lionsgate were like,
they're like, this ain't us, not us, get away.
We just inherited it.
Yeah,
my apologies to Lionsgate.
We mentioned before that we definitely see him as a really good businessman. Like, he knows what he's doing. You know, even his other stuff that he's opened restaurants and stuff since. And
yeah, but he's back to filmmaking.
Back to film. Oh,
he's
great!
He's just finished a film, and it is currently being scored as we speak. As to the article that came out 3 days ago.
Like, good for him. Like, I'm not going to gatekeep making movies. If he gets the money and people want to see it, and he, you know, I mean, he's a bit problematic. Some of the stuff he's done is like not okay. But overall, I'm not going to gatekeep from the point of I don't think his movies are very good. Like, how can you expect people to get better if they're not continuing to like thingy their craft? Right, that being said, don't know if that's on his agenda anytime soon. But.
Right. Yes, I was over there, but I was just gonna say, like, yeah, I mean, if he's improved on his skill, I'm trying to be the optimist and say that, hey, maybe it's better. Maybe we'll get a movie that's got 2% on Rotten Tomatoes.
He has stopped adapting video games, and when you do look at the films that are on the IMDb 100, they're all his video game adaptations.
They are.
None of his kind of more original stuff. So, and he said that he wanted to go back to writing his own movies as well, because he didn't write any of his video game adaptations. So maybe that's even an improvement in himself. Like, make something you actually care about.
Yeah, play on your strengths, follow your passions. So, yeah.
I would say, just looking at his filmography, that seems like an improvement just as a personal, like, within himself.
A good career move for him, probably.
Yeah, taking that feedback that, you know, okay, I'm not doing well, these people don't like them, they make money, but also, do I like them? Am I putting my best self into them? And so I'd be interested in that. And I also think, you know, reading a bit more into him today, I just think I read a lot of positive press about him this morning. It does seem like all of the, you know, I'm gonna box all of these critics that say my movie's shit. It's just mega PR, and you know what? It fucking works. Because I know I did.
That's why everyone knows him, right? Because he's notorious for that.
Yeah, so many people have reached out to us, being like, "Oh my god, Uwe Boll, he's so well known." Considering all his movies apparently did terribly.
Yeah.
So
good point.
The man's doing something right.
Yeah, give him props for that, for sure.
We're about to get punched for this, aren't we?
Hey, before we started recording, you said you would defend my honour because I
did say that. I did say that. I'll take the punch on that one. Okay. I'll do daisies as well. I got you.
I think I've been a bit harsher on him, to be fair. So I think I might be the target. But one thing we haven't really touched upon too much is the cast and the performances. And one little bit of trivia I wanted to drop in before we touched on that was, unfortunately, Uwe Boll has stated on various occasions that he's regretted having Tara Reid in the film. He wanted Jessica Alba. And it's basically been Tara Reid's casting received criticism even upon announcement because of Reid's previous characters, potentially a bit of typecasting. So to kind of combat that, Uwe Boll anticipated the criticism and made her seem smarter by putting her hair in a bun and putting glasses on her and hoped for the best. What do we feel about the casting and the performances there?
I did a bit of Googling on Tara Reid to see where she was at this point in her career. And she was still doing some pretty good stuff at this point. You know, I'm a big defender of Josie and the Pussycats. I love the American Pie films. I mean, she was in like Big Lebowski and stuff.
She was, yes.
I will be mean. I do not think she's a particularly strong actress. I feel like she kind of just hit a moment and couldn't carry it because I just don't think. But I also think she's unfortunately horrendously typecast. I watched an interview with her about this film, and the interview questions asked her about her nip slip that had happened in the press previously. Then they asked her, what's it like always playing a sexy character? And then they asked her about her, you know, her lifestyle habits. They didn't ask her a single question about film. They didn't ask her a single question about her craft. So I do also think, you know, there's so much to be looked at for what was going on with young stars in the 2000s.
It was that era, wasn't it?
it was so that era. So I would also imagine that, you know, we say, oh, she's not that great an actress, but from the sounds of it, she wasn't given a bloody chance because she was getting it from every angle and being beaten up from every side.
Mm-hmm.
And this does kind of seem like the drop-off point of her career when you look at what she did after this. She starts getting nominated for Razzie Awards. Her films are less prolific, they're weirder casting, and then she ends up, you know, in the Sharknado of it all. I thought she was great in the first Sharknado, to be fair. Go Sharknado. But yeah, I think she's miscast. I think Christian Slater doesn't really know what film he's in, which I think is part of the tonal problems.
Right.
He also has his own, you know, personal history of substance abuse and issues. So I think, you know, you've got this core group of actors who I think just want to go in and work, and fair fucks to them, let them do the work and leave their personal life alone, which is fine bringing up their personal life. I don't know, I've talked myself into a well hole. Turn my mic off.
No, I agree.
It's okay, it's all right.
I think it's a double-edged sword with Tara Reid, because you're right. People weren't giving her a fair chance because she was typecast, she was objectified, and she wasn't necessarily given a lot of good scripts to work with at points in her career. But then that's what set her up to potentially like not be very good, and then it was a self-preservation cycle, which is really harsh. Like, but what did they expect? Because if that's your opinion on her, you've cast her. Like, if Uwe was like, oh, I regret casting her, I wanted someone else. Like, I mean, surely there were why? Yeah, but why did you cast her then? Because there was obviously a reason, and the reason was you thought she would pull in people because of her looks. You know that. That's why you put a sex scene in. That's why you tried to get her out of her no nudity clause. So just don't hold your hands up and be like, oh, it didn't work, and yeah, I kind of regret that now because she's not a very good actress. Where's your responsibility in that casting? Because there's so many more factors to play in someone's bad performance. And whilst, no, it wasn't fantastic, it's not 100% her fault, I don't think.
It weirdly kind of, I mean, very different situation into, like, I preferred one performance over the other in what I'm about to say, but it kind of reminds me of the story regarding the marketing with Jennifer's Body, where it was done a certain way. Yeah, you know, infamously, it was done in a way just to be like, guys, Megan Fox, she's hot, right? You know, let's sell that. It's like, guys, that's not what the movie really is about, though. You know,
but
like, and now it's getting a renaissance.
Going around in a mini skirt, she's gonna be eating boys in a bra, and like most of the movie, she looks shit. She looks so bad in that movie, and that's what makes it brilliant.
Yeah,
I love anyone that loves Jennifer's Body. So
no, I've come around on it. Like the first time I saw it, I was like, it's okay. But then I saw it some years later, and then on second watch, I was like, oh, this is actually damn good. Like,
but you're watching it in the context of what's served up for you, right? So if you're hearing those interviews, you've got the people's opinions about Megan Fox and stuff. Sometimes you need to take a step back and watch it for what it is and realize that it's a whole heap of fun. It's Megan Fox kind of like leaning into her sexuality, but kind of like going, haha, look what I can do because I've caught you unsuspectingly. And that's kind of the plot of the film. Absolutely. I think there's definitely a good reason to look back at some of these films and see that these people, give them a bit of credit, people were trying to do some stuff, and especially with women in the noughties, like there's a whole heap of context around some of these films.
I would like to clarify that I watched it not because of the interviews. I watched it more because a friend.
I didn't get that vibe at all. But I think it's just how it's set up. You know, I think we would talk. I think we've talked previously about how a lot of these seemingly not well received films of the noughties are now having a bit of a renaissance because people are seeing that they were kind of not ahead of their time, but they just weren't. They can be so better received now in the world that we live in versus the kind of world that we were in the noughties. And I think it is just a context thing sometimes when you rewatch stuff and you realize that, oh shit, this is good if you take it out of the world where we were told like movies with these people aren't going to be very good, and you know, etc. But no, definitely not making any assumptions on your viewing habits. No. Definitely not. Speaking of, you know, things not performing as well, shall we have a look at some of the reception and reviews for the film? I can see here that it was a box office bomb. It only grossed $12.7 million on a $20 million budget. But as we've mentioned, the home media releases were a lot more successful. A sequel did come out, different cast, different story. That was released straight to home media in 2008, and Bowl served as a producer. Don't suppose you've seen that one as well, have you, Shara?
No, I haven't seen the sequel. No, sorry.
No, don't worry. I wasn't expecting you to. I was just interested to see if anyone had. I don't think Claire would have.
But there is an interesting tidbit about it, which is I think the IGN review said it's a much better movie than this. So, I guess there's that.
I'll have to look up the score on IMDb, because I imagine that if it's not that much higher, it's probably just because it wasn't seen by as many people. But I'd be interested to see what it is in comparison. But yeah, in terms of the home market, the unrated director's cut, released in Germany, France, and Australia, was number one on the German DVD market for 3 weeks. So there's definitely an audience there for this. That being said, it currently has an 11% on Rotten Tomatoes for audience, 1% for critics. The consensus is inept on almost every level. Alone in the Dark may not work as a thriller, but it's good for some head-slapping, incredulous laughter. Yeah, I laughed
a few times.
But I was more bored than anything, so I don't even think it's so bad. It's a good film. It had a 9 on Metascore. The highest review it got was from the LA Times. It gave it a 50 and said, since the film is based on the Atari video game of the same name, it also has much to appeal to headbangers. Fast-paced, lots of gadgets, monsters, explosive special effects, plenty of inscrutable plot twists and turns. And that they have highlighted the stuff that we've sort of said works well. A 0 from the New York Times. So inept on every level, you wonder why the distributor didn't release it straight to video, or better, toss it directly in the trash.
God. And just to be clear, the distributor is not Alliance.
They distributed it, but they did not create it.
Absolved them entirely.
Straight down the middle, though, the Philadelphia Inquirer gave it 25 and said even Bowl seems to lose interest as the story unravels. By that time, the supernatural cliches, plot inconsistencies, dead ends, and red herrings have piled up so high you can barely see the screen. And I think that is a little bit testament to what we've said about the writing. It was nominated for quite a few awards across the Razzies, the Golden Schmoes, the Stinkers, etc. From what we can imagine, they were obviously nominations for like the director, worst picture, and Tara Reid got a nomination as well. I think they only won a few though, because I think again, like they were up against like Son of Mask in some of them and things like that, so there were actually worse films out around this time. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, Claire, if you have any more reviews to share.
No, I just had one from Letterboxd from a real Twitter friend, Harris Dang, who just said he burst out laughing as soon as the film started with the text crawl. The target criticism on Reed was mean because no one comes out of this film well, which I completely agree with. And the constant and patronising narration is the real horror here. Just about summed up my opinions. And yeah, it's interesting that it got such negative press, because I just don't even think there's enough in this film to even criticise.
Yeah, it's kind of how it's when I like when you asked in the beginning, I was like nothing.
Yeah,
and that really was it. It wasn't. It was just like nothing. Like I mean, it's the worst. It's for me that's the worst criticism, you know, for a movie, because there can be bad things in a movie and you can be like the editing here is not good. This is not good, but it's like at
least someone tried.
Things can improve. Exactly. Here I'm just like nothing. Like I walked out blank.
And I think that makes you feel like if there's a lack of connection in that way, whether it's I think having a reaction, having a good or a bad response means that you felt like something was communicated to you, whether you liked it or not. Whereas something down the middle just does feel sort of hollow and sort of devoid of any kind of like something passionate for you to like at least see where the person was coming from, even or not at all, but feel rejected by it. But kind of it's summarized in this Letterboxd review from Paul Carupe, who said that Bowl's been accused of being the worst modern director, but truth be told, is not as flat out incompetent as his rep suggests. There are certainly many problems in this juvenile action horror jumble, bad casting decisions, poor script writing, runs out of steam, etc. But actually, the direction does display some basic workmanlike competence and flair for staging action. It's not good, but the whole exercise isn't as embarrassingly awful as often reported. And I think that hits nails on the head, all of them, on the head, to say, you know, we've looked in depth at the things that don't work. There's a few things we've said that we liked, but overall as a viewing experience, it's more lackluster than it is bad. I think we'll all agree. With that, though, shall we head into some ratings out of 5? Shall we? Do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Half? I don't know. I just...
Fair enough.
I didn't mind Christian Slater too much. I will say he was trying something, like, wrong movie, but, you know.
Fair enough.
Trying. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll probably go 1.5, maybe 1. I don't really. I'm going 1.5.
Okay.
Let's be nice. I'm in a nice mood. But it is that thing of, like, I think my problem is there's nothing to compliment, but there's also not. I know we've spent 2 hours now criticizing it. There actually isn't loads to criticize. Like, it does tell a story of a beginning, middle, and end. It doesn't tell an interesting one. Yeah, just let's go 1. Dull, mediocre. Wouldn't recommend it. Would never watch it. Yeah. Why am I talking so much?
Because it's what a podcast is all about, Claire. Talk more and then you can cut out all the bits you don't want. You and the whole discussion have made me drop my rating a little bit. At the beginning, I was going to go more for a 2 for a poor, which is, you know, I didn't actively dislike it. I was just very non-interested. But I think the more that we've spoken about just how much it misses the mark, it is more of a bad, but it's not terrible. So I'm going to go for a 1.5 out of 5. Do we think it deserves to be on the bottom 100 though, given what we've know is out there?
I do, but I don't think it deserves to be in the position it's in.
Right.
I'm very surprised that this is, like, what did you say, 14 or 15?
13,
like,
I think.
In the 13, like, that seems very, very high for me for a film that, you know, its biggest sin is it's boring, lackluster, you know, undeveloped, like we've all said. I can't believe that there are only 12 films in the world worse than this, because I'm sure I've seen at least 100.
Yeah, I can think of, I mean, there's 87 movies after. Yeah, I can think of 87 movies worse than this, for sure. Like, this is nowhere near bottom 15 movies of all time now.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily save it because it's boring AF, but yeah, I'm never going to touch this again. Wouldn't recommend it, but it certainly doesn't. I can't see it as being the 13th worst film in the world.
But I'm also of the opinion that Birdemic, which is in the top 3, is the greatest movie of all time.
This is the wonder of subjectivity.
Exactly. So just take it as you will, you know.
For sure.
Like, I will recommend Birdemic to my grandkids someday. Like, it's like
poor them, poor grandkids.
Absolutely not. They will be raised to be good children. So,
yeah, give them a chance. Okay, cool. So speaking of films that we like, let's go into our top 3. So we've gone for a creature feature theme this episode, in ode to the xenomorph-like creatures. Shari, do you want to take us away with your top 3 recommendations for creature feature films?
The First Alien, and I do stand by that one. That is absolutely my favorite one, in terms of creature features. It's the one that I think that it's a film, it's an example of a movie which, you know, even when you look at the production story around it, it was supposed to be the not great movie, but then what Ridley Scott did with that is just, it was incredibly special, incredibly awesome, and it gave us, you know, Ripley, which is great. You know, I can't complain about that too much, and that's how you ended up with a great sequel in Aliens as well. The second one that I was going to say, because I figured, you know, if we're looking at King Kong, the Peter Jackson one in 2005, I adore. It was a very special movie, especially when like something that was something that me and my dad watched like a lot, especially, like, you know, and we still talk about it to this day and still watch it every time it's on. Like, it's one of those special movies, you know, between us. And I think it's a really great remake, and it's also one that really, like, manages to do some really clever stuff with, you know, with Kong, especially. Andy Serkis is amazing with the motion capture there. And the third one, this was a tough one, but because there's a lot of things that came to mind, but I'm gonna go with Cloverfield.
Ah, nice.
because I didn't know what to expect with Cloverfield, and I remember seeing the poster. I think this was 2008 or something like that. I was going in to watch. I think it was like The Dark Knight or something like that, and there was the poster of this destroyed Statue of Liberty, and I'm like, what is this? Like, I need to check this out. This looks awesome. And then eventually watching it, I had no idea what it was going to become, and the way it used found footage, Matt Reeves did an amazing job with that, like just putting you in that moment, in the zone. I think it was a fantastic creature feature, one that I've loved more, as time has gone on. I do think 10 Cloverfield Lane is a better movie, but it's not really a creature feature.
It's a different film, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't really count, even though the third act is there, but I don't really count that as a creature feature. So that's why the first Cloverfield.
Amazing. Yeah, I really rate the first Cloverfield as well. I think it's a great example of found footage done right and using it to its advantage, especially when it comes to sort of the reveal of the creature as well. Definitely. Yeah. Shall I go first this time, or
I'll let you go first?
Okay, cool. Yeah. So, in vein of what we have spoken about, mentioned on the podcast, I'm going to go for the first Predator. I think, given that this is meant to be sort of like an action horror film, I think that Predator is an excellent example of an action horror that I love, because it dials up what's best about both elements, and it's not this creepy, scary sort of like haunted house dark. It's set in a bright bloody tropical rainforest of all things. Like, it's not what you can't see in the dark, it's what you can't see because it's got this extra special alien invisibility sort of tech to it. But oh my god, does it build up the tension. Obviously the fact that it doesn't show the predator for such a long time, but it's got really good gore in it. Like, it really makes you feel like you're there in the jungle with the crew. Arnold Schwarzenegger is obviously fantastic in it. One of the best lines in the whole of cinema, get to the chopper. Like, there's just, it's really iconic, and I've watched it back quite a few times now. And also a shout out to the cheesy credits ending, what makes them look like they're in some sort of 80s sitcom. I just feel like it really knows what it's doing, but it was also quite disruptive at the time, but it dialed into what was great about action films in the 80s, whilst bringing this whole new thing that was really sci-fi. And I don't know, it's very unique in that space. And obviously we then go down the route of the New York set sequel and then the crossover of Aliens, but it's fun. It is horrifying. The creature design is incredible. And look, we're still making prequels and sequels for it now. So there's definitely a lot of love for that film there. But I think the one that it spawned it all is probably the best for me.
Nice. Speaking of spawning it all, I'm going to go with one of the original creature features, Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Ooh.
Which I had the privilege of seeing it at the cinema last Halloween.
Nice.
It was my first viewing. Absolutely adored it. Just brilliant. Talking of character design, like, I can't believe what they were able to do back then. And just the cinematography is astonishing, the underwater movement. And also, similar to Alone in the Dark, it's a movie about a bunch of stupid white people investigating shit that they should have left alone. Just leave things alone and no one would have got hurt. So yeah, that's from me.
So my second is A Quiet Place. I was really blown away by this the first time I watched it. I really like John Krasinski from The Office. It's not something that I expected from him. I thought it was a really great cast. I think it was great that they had deaf representation. I thought it was shot beautifully. And I just think, in terms of tension, my God, not being able to make a sound and the way that they set up the whole production of the house and how they had to live. The one thing I have to say is, why the hell are you not using condoms, not having more babies? Because you know that babies make a lot of noise. But I suppose the condoms might have run out of date by that point. Maybe that's why. But, you've got to have that to create the Act 3 moment of really high tension.
We learned from Friends that they're only 98% effective.
That's true. That's true. It never gets explained, and I think it's fine. And also, if you're John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, can't keep your hands off each other, I'm sure. But I just think it was a really, really great. It was his directorial debut, right? I think what a stamp of like just making something like that. You know, a lot of people cite as one like really high up in modern horror lists. It's just got a really interesting. I say really interesting all the time, doesn't mean anything. Yeah, just the tone of it all. I just think it's really smartly written. Like it uses a lot of technicalities of filmmaking to its advantage in the story, and just creates terror with those monsters. You know, you don't want you holding your breath every time that they're making a sound. So, yeah, that is my second choice.
Cool. I am going to go for my second choice for Bong Joon-ho's The Host.
Ooh.
Just a good, fun creature feature. And yeah, I mean, if you've not seen it, it's amazing. I've only seen it the once, and I need to go back and give it a rewatch because I loved it. Just some really great, like, genuinely terrifying set pieces, and like the master of tension. You know, most people have seen Parasite now, so they know how that man can build tension. So then imagine him building tension with a giant, like, an octopus monster thing from the sea. So yeah, The Host.
Cool. I haven't seen that yet, but I know that they're doing at time of recording a Bong Joon-ho season at the Prince Charles, so hopefully I might be able to catch another one of his films there. My last one, From Sea to Space, I am going to go for Nope, which I watched for the first time when it came out last year in the cinema. And again, all of mine have been chosen around building tension and horror because, again, I know that there was this whole thing about shooting day for night with Nope and all things like that, but I personally think the most tension is found in the day, and the fact that they were able to do that in the light and build that tension of what the fuck is going on. You know, there's jump scares in it that kind of fake you out, but oh my god, do you think you're about to see something horrific? And we all know how amazing, for the most part, for most people, Jordan Peele is with horror. So it was so exciting to see him do something that was like a creature feature and something that was a little bit more, even more so than Us, like really out of the box and unexpected. Lots of dread, lots of amazing sort of visuals with the raining down on the house, and even the sound in that. I think just the tactileness of the world that he created, and also obviously the performances of Daniel Clue and Keke Palmer were just incredible as well. And goes without saying, Jordan Peele's films have so many layers to them too. So all of the commentary around Hollywood, and the backstory there, and Stephen Ewan's character, and oh my god, that sequence with the monkey, I haven't even mentioned that, was just if your heart's ever going to stop, it's when you're looking at that POV of him hiding under the table and looking out onto the set of that show. So if you haven't seen that, that is my third recommendation.
Cool. I'm going to steal one from the Daisy Playbook.
Oh.
And my final recommendation is going to be Gremlins.
Yay! That was on my list, but I know I'd already picked it before, so...
I find the Gremlins incredibly terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah, they're just... I don't know what else to say. They're terrifying. I didn't watch the film until I was an adult, and I was still scared. And then, like, even though Gremlins 2 is meant to be a comedy, my boyfriend at the time had to go to work when it was on the TV, so he was like, all right, I'm off. And I was like, no, you can't leave because, like, I don't want to watch this on my own. So, yeah, you know, just everyone's seen the Gremlins.
That was one, someone asked me the other day, what's a film that you watched way too young? And I couldn't think of anything. And then I realised it's Gremlins. I think I watched that when I was like 10. And I didn't realise until...
Most people did. I think people thought it was for kids.
Yeah.
It's not for kids.
No. And actually, the older I get, the more I find it scary. Except when they're all singing along to Snow White, which is just hilarious. But no, I'm glad. That's one of my favourites. So I'm glad that it got a shout out. Other ones that I had on my list as well were The Thing, John Carpenter's. The Fly, which I know we've mentioned before. I don't know if it technically counts, but he does turn into a creature. Really random one, Splice. Have you ever seen that? Naughty's film with, what is his name? Adrian Brody. Very weird. Like, I'll let you look that one up if you're not sure what that is, because it's a bit weird. At Kong Skull Island, if we're talking about action and a big bloody creature, like action, oh my god, just I was blown away by that, actually. Like, really felt really stylized, really interesting, engaging. I was quite surprised by that one because I liked the Godzillas and I do like the original King Kong, but like this was just like, oh shit, this is actually a lot better. It appealed to me more than I thought it would. It went for something very, just a little bit, not out of the box, but just a little bit more to the edge of the box, I think.
Nice. I've not seen that. My only other kind of main one that I was toying with, which was more of a joke one, is Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Because actually, I genuinely had a really fun time watching that. It's absolutely nonsensical.
Oh my god, I can imagine.
But just worth a watch if you're bored. Definitely have a few drinks.
Yes, I'm just looking it up now because I don't even think I realised it was a thing.
Oh yeah, killer tomatoes. They just bounce along and kill people.
Fair enough. I mean, what else are they going to do? Grow legs? Mutated killer tomatoes. Well, I never. Okay, great. Loads of recommendations there for people that are trying to expand their creature feature lists. But going back to the film in question, Alone in the Dark, we'd love to know if you're listening, if you've seen it and what you think. And if you might want to give it a go now after we've ripped it to shreds for 2 hours. Let us know if you think it deserves its place on the bottom 100. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at WRatedPod and on Letterboxd at WRated. Sharia, do you want to share where we can find you on socials? And if there's anything you want to sort of plug or promote at the moment, you can feel free to share away as well.
I'm a very easy person to find on social media. My handle on everything is just my name. Literally just my name. So if you see it as it's typed out in the description of this podcast video or anything, just type that in. You got me. Like, I'm that easy to find. I'm also on YouTube. I review movies on there and games and shows. Same exact thing. You just search me by my name, I make it very accessible.
Nice.
And I hope to see people there. Hope to see you guys there, and talk more there.
Absolutely. Yes, please do check out the YouTube channel. It's great. You're always so up to date with everything. So if there's something out at the cinema at the moment and you want to hear some opinions about it, please do check out the YouTube. Claire, where can we find you?
Twitter and Instagram, Claire Ellen Hope, Claire without an I, just existing.
That's good enough for me. I feel like I'm doing the same over at Daisy Vic Edwards on Twitter, Daisy Victoria Edwards on Instagram and Letterboxd. And then, I Love You Guys is being put into film festivals at the moment. So I imagine there might be some more news when this is released about where we've got in. So if you want to go check that out, click through on my profile. I Love You Guys, if you're not sure, is the film that we ever intermittently bring up on the podcast because it's been a film I've been producing for about 3 or 4 years. So if anyone wanted an update regarding that, that's where we're at now. So that's very exciting. But other than that, just a big thanks, Shari, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to have you on. And please do, if there's anything else you want to chat about, let us know and we'd love to have you back on. But thanks for everyone for tuning in. As always, if you enjoy listening, do give us a follow or a subscribe. And we'd love to get a rating and review as well if you have the time. And we hope you can join us for the next episode where we take on our next worst rated film. See you then.